Okay, great. Welcome everyone to the URECA Summer Fellowship Workshop. We're going to be spending some time talking about the summer programs that are available to you as a Wake Forest student. Just to outline what we're going to do, there are a few steps in today. So today we're going to start by briefly describing the different mechanisms that we support here at Wake Forest. And then I'm going to give you a very short overview of what it's like to apply for a grant beyond this space. It applies to what we're going to be doing, but I want you to think ahead because what we're intentionally doing as a result of this process is giving you practice in grant writing or funding seeking that you can take skills with you once you leave Wake Forest. So we're going to talk very briefly about how you would go about that and how you should go about that with regards to these fellowships. And then we're going to learn a little bit about human subject research regulations so that you can think about them as you're preparing your projects, whether they're here at Wake or whether they're across water somewhere. And then we're going to break up into two different groups at the end. Those who are interested in the Richter scholarships will go across the hall to room 162 and get some information on what to think about while applying. And those of you who are interested in the arts and humanities and Wake Forest Research Fellowship will stay in this room, and Dr. Alexander and I will take questions about what is being looked for in those applications. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to talk about the different opportunities that are offered through Wake Forest during the summer. So the first is the Wake Forest Research Fellowship. This is offered by the URECA Center. This is really you pairing up with a faculty mentor to work on a piece of scholarship. So you do that under the mentorship of a Wake Forest faculty member. It's open to any student with any faculty member. It is a $4,000 award. That's the stipend you get during the summer. And then you have summer housing if you request it. That summer housing is in the residence halls on campus. We put everyone together so that you're here as a community. And then you can also budget up to $500 in supplies for the project if you need it. Okay, these must be at least 10 weeks in length, so you have to be on campus during 10 weeks. Usually that if you're staying in the residence halls here, that means you're here for summer session 1 and summer session 2, although there's flexibility as long as you can fit the 10 weeks of work into the summer. You can not take summer courses along with this. This is a negotiable thing. If you're doing a Wake Forest Research Fellowship, the idea is that you're spending your full time across the summer engaging with a faculty mentor and doing scholarship. The applications for those are due on February 13th through InfoReady, which we will talk about in the breakout session afterwards. So this is a 10-week full summer research experience that you work out with your mentor before submitting for the application. Now, there are also Wake Forest Arts and Humanities Fellowships. This is open to students who have mentors who are in Division 1, 2, or 3. These are shorter term projects. They cover one summer session of 5 weeks. It's half the time, so it's also half the remuneration. You get a $2,000 stipend. You can still get up to $500 in supplies, and you can have summer housing for one summer session. So again, during that summer session, when you're doing your fellowship, you're not allowed to be taking classes, but you could combine an arts and humanities fellowship one summer session with taking a summer class in the next summer session. As long as they don't overlap, then that's fine. The applications for those are a little later to provide you time to work, seek out a faculty member in Divisions 1, 2, or 3, and I believe this is the Wednesday after spring break. Okay. These are really mentored scholarships in the sense that the goal is for you to do an apprenticeship with a faculty mentor on some project that you and they work out. The Richter Scholarship is a little bit different in the sense that this is a program that's designed to give you a life-changing experience. That is literally what the description is in the charter. These are foundation dollars that Wake Forest gets. And these are individual projects that you do typically abroad. The goal is for you to develop a project that you can go and do abroad that will give you a new perspective, and it's always off campus, it's internationally focused. You get a budget of $6,000. The time frame is not as strict as with the fellowships are. You get to use that $6,000 to go have the experience and come back. So you get to work out your time within the budget of the award. You can't use the $6,000 to study abroad. That's a different sort of experience. So you can't pay any other institution or programs. You can't use it for equipment. And human subjects research is discouraged. It's not impossible, but it's discouraged, and we'll learn more about that in a little bit. Good mentoring is a key to success in all of these programs. Even with the Richter scholarships, it's to your benefit and required that you seek out a faculty mentor to help you shape out the project that you're going to do. Those applications are due relatively soon, February 2nd. The reason for that is because they need to be chosen before the ad time for the second half of the semester, so that you can sign up for a class that will help you in your transition to doing an excellent job in a foreign country, okay, outside of Wake Forest. Okay, specific questions about the programs will wait for the end, but these are the three programs that we're largely going to be talking about here. I do, however, want you to know that there are external opportunities out there. They are most common in the STEM disciplines. These are actually fresh pictures of web pages that I just took this afternoon. The NSF funds REU, Research Experiences for Undergraduate Programs across the country that you can apply for. If you go to this website, you can search all of them. Okay. So that's one possibility for an external program. This is just another example from the Association of American Medical Colleges. They have a list of universities that provide undergraduate programs in STEM disciplines for folks that think they might want to go on to medical school. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the list under W, you'll find Wake Forest University, because we have some programs downtown that are funded by, that are supported in the same sort of way. Okay, so summer program, this session isn't about programs out there, but I want you to know that there are other programs out there, and it's largely up to you to seek them out, but these are two great resources if you're interested in doing that. Okay. Once you've done your project, however, whether it's on campus or whether it's somewhere else, we want you to present at Eureka Day if you can. So the picture on the first slide was posters everywhere in the Sutton Hall. That was last year's cohort of people at Eureka Day presenting work that they had done in the previous year, both on campus and off of campus during the summer and across the entire academic year. And I want you to know as well that if you do any of these things and you go with your mentor to a conference within their discipline, there is some funding through Star Foundation that has given us money that we can apply for a Star Travel grant in order to get support to go to an actual conference. So these are things that are available for you. Okay? All right. Quick aside before we talk more specifically about these programs, I want to talk to you about the process of getting grant money or foundation money. Examples of what this might be, like myself, a scientist wishes to ask for federal dollars to support a research project. So I'm going to apply to the NIH or the NSF to try to get money in order to do the research that I do at my laboratory. Or perhaps a teacher, educator, or parent, one of you someday, is interested in applying for state dollars to help develop a new education program, okay, to buy computers or to build a new classroom. In order to do that, you would need to put together a proposal and send that to the state. Or say an artist learns that the city is commissioning a piece of artwork to be featured in City Hall. Same sort of process would move you forward in applying to be able to potentially be the artist to pull that together. So in an ideal world, maybe there would only be 3 steps to getting grant or project funding. One was we'd have a great idea, and then we'd write the great idea down in a proposal, and then we would get it funded, and that would be it. Okay. None of these is trivial, particularly having a great idea takes time and effort, right? So does the writing. None of these steps are trivial, But if you add a couple more steps into the process, you're much likely to have more success in the outcome of getting the funding. So I'm going to add 2 steps to this list, and then we're going to talk through the process. To maximize our success, we're going to have the great idea, and then we're going to research possible funding sources. We're not just going to choose one out of a hat. We're actually going to find one that applies to what we're attempting to do. And then we're going to write a proposal based on that idea and on the research that we did from the funding source. And then we're going to review the proposal critically based on what we know. And then once we've revised our application based on that information, you're going to submit it and hopefully you'll have it funded. Okay, so steps 2 and 4 may not be the sexiest parts of the process, but they are nonetheless extraordinarily important. So let's step through what that means. And incidentally, you're on step 2 by being here, right? So step 1 is have a great idea. You're like, but what if I don't have a great idea yet? There are some, I guarantee you I could find a scientist who said, actually what you need to do is find a funding source and then get your good idea. But let's not talk about that. All right, have your great idea. The next step is to research possible funding sources. You go out there and try to find the types of people who have dollars to spend on your sort of project. So one question you might ask is who's going to do this? And in order to figure out whether they're appropriate for you, you then ask what kind of proposals they funded in the past. Most foundations and certainly the government wants to brag about the research that it's funded. So you can find the projects that they funded, and you may determine by reading the titles or a few abstracts that you know what your idea isn't a really great fit for the National Science Foundation, but it's a really good fit for the National Institutes of Health. And so what you would want to do is shift your energies towards the institution or the foundation that's more aligned with the sort of work that you do. If it's possible, you should get examples of successful applications. I don't have examples to hand out to you today, but we're here to ask questions about what features are in a successful application. All right? A good question I'll ask is what percentage of proposals are actually funded? So if you've got a foundation and you've got a federal grant, and the foundation funds, I'm going to be optimistic, 25% of the proposals that are submitted to it, and the National Institute of Health funds approximately 5%, then maybe you should spend more of your time going for the foundation that funds more of the proposals. So some of your homework is to figure out not only what good fits are, but where is it most likely that you're investing your time and your effort and writing is going to yield an outcome. Okay? You also want to research how the proposals are evaluated. All right? If possible, get a score sheet. Because then you can take this information later on, once you've written your proposal based on your idea and on your research of the funding source. Since you know what they're looking for, you can write your application to answer the questions that they're looking for. And then you can take that rubric and go to a friend or a colleague that you trust and ask them to read your proposal and grade it based on the grading sheet, not with you in the room, right? So that you can then get feedback from them that you can use to go back to your proposal and critically evaluate it. So this step, all right, is important because the best thing you can do is not turn in the first draft of your proposal. You can create a good proposal, you can get it reviewed by someone who's not going to review it, but who has the score sheet that will be used, and then it's essentially getting feedback from your professor on your paper, and then you rewrite it to be consistent with what you've learned, and then you can use your mentors, friends, and colleagues. You can hold a mock review session, and then you edit the proposal based on that feedback. I was an undergraduate student once, and I don't think I ever had a paper that I wrote that wasn't due the next day. Okay? As a scientist, I can't do that. You have to spend time in drafts. Writing is a process, not an assignment. And if you want to have a successful application, it needs to go through multiple iterations. Okay? And then you submit the proposal. And you have it funded. Hopefully. You submit the proposal and you get reviews back and it's not funded right away and your heart is broken and you said, why? Why did I spend all that time? I'm projecting here, this is me. And then you take the feedback that you got from those reviewers and you edit again. And then you send it again. And then, if you're lucky, you have it funded. Okay, any questions about the process of grant seeking? Generalities of all of this. Yeah.
So say your proposal is like downturned by some committee. Are they going to be the same ones reviewing it again after you edit it and everything like that, and they tell you the suggestions?
You mean in the outside world?
Yeah.
So that is a great question, and the answer is sometimes.
Okay.
So if you submit to NIH, for example, I've served on a review panel for NIH, and you submit your proposal, and it's reviewed, and it's not funded and around. You'll get 3 bits of feedback from 3 reviewers who really read your proposal carefully, and then you'll edit your proposal, and you'll send it back in, and the people who are in charge of the review make sure that one of the people who were originally reviewing yours do it again, but then they give the other 2 reviews to others. And so it is entirely possible for you to, I'm not being cynical here, it's entirely possible for you to edit to the slate of original reviewers and have a new reviewer pick out a new problem that wasn't mentioned the first time. It can happen. But generally, scores do improve when you resubmit based on initial reviewers. Other questions? Okay. All right. So before we break up into groups where we talk about the Richters and the fellowships more explicitly and give advice on how to fill out the applications, we're going to talk a little bit about human subjects regulations. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, if you don't mind. I'm going to pull up your slides.
Hey friends, I'm Jeannie Baird. I am the Associate Director for Human Subjects Research Protection here at Wake. Have any of you heard of the IRB or worked with the IRB in your time here? Few people? Okay, great. So I coordinate the IRB activities and manage all the oversight of that here for the university. And I'm just going to give a very high level, quick plug for who we are and why we do it and how you need to go about working with us. So the IRB is not something that we just sat around and thought it to be a fun committee to have on campus. It's actually a federally mandated committee that has to oversee all human subjects research. There's a lot of good science done, especially back in the early 40s, 50s era, where good intentions, very poor treatment of humans. And so our federal government stepped in 1974 and said we need oversight of how people are treated while participating in research. It's important that we have people participate so that we can make scientific advancements, but we also have to take care of those folks to the best of our ability. So that is why the IRB is a committee on this campus. Every university has one. The School of Medicine has one that works for the School of Medicine projects, and we work closely with them. So if you are collecting information about people, you will likely need the IRB's approval, so you will need to contact us. Examples, if you're interviewing, if you're surveying, if you're holding focus groups, this one's a big one. A lot of people say, well, I'm just going to go to a park in Denmark and observe toddlers playing. That's gathering information about those kids, so you're going to need IRB approval for that, even though you're not interacting with them or changing their environment. Observations can be considered human subjects research. And then if you are using previously collected data or biospecimens, if you're doing some of the fellowships, you might be working with professors over at the School of Medicine with cancer cells or blood specimens. All of those things are still considered human subjects research, generally speaking. There's 1,000 caveats we could chase, but generally speaking, those are all examples of things that we do here for human subjects research. So you're going to write up your application for this process, and you're going to think through all of the methodologies, and you're going to do your lit reviews and all those things. And if you are considering using people, you need to reach out to myself and Lindsay. Jarvis Breen is my colleague. She's sitting over here. And actually, when you submit your applications to the Richter or the fellowship groups, those folks give me access, so I can screen them all as well. So a lot of times students don't realize they're doing human subjects. So I'll email them and say, hey, can we talk about this? And help them understand why what they're doing is research with humans. So I will reach out to you, but if you know already that you're planning on working with humans, we can go ahead and start those conversations early, if you're so inclined. If human subjects research is not your primary goal, we can also help you think of ways to do this research that does not require the IRB. So if you want to go study art in Europe, that's a very common application I've seen in my time here. You don't necessarily have to go interview artists. You can go do museum tours and library studies, all those types of things that would not require the IRB to oversee your project. We can help you to some degree tailor your studies if you don't want to go through the IRB process, so that you can still go have that great experience but not have to do the work with the IRB. Does that make sense? So should you decide that you do want to do human subject research, again, for Richter it's not required, but if you do want to pursue that, fellowships, etc. The most important thing, if you hear me say nothing else today, hear me say that you have to choose an experienced faculty member to be your principal investigator. Mentor, principal investigator is the word we use in IRB, but you need to find someone who is in the field, who is certified at Wake Forest. We have an educational program everyone has to complete called CITI. Some of you have taken it. You have to find an investigator or faculty member who is already ready to hit the ground. It's a lot of work to ask someone who's never done human subjects to mentor someone in the spring semester into the summer. So if you're in a field, if your major doesn't do a lot of human subjects, you're an art major or a music major, you may have to go outside your major professors to find a faculty member. There's so many on this campus who do amazing research. If you're really struggling, we can kind of help point you in some direction, but really the onus is on you because you're the one that's going to be working with that person to have that relationship with mentorship. So if you hear nothing else, please take note of the first bullet. And I've just kind of talked about that. You have to have your current CITI certification. It's a human subject protection module. If you've never taken it, it's a 3 to 4 hour training online. We are fully electronic, so you'll get your EIRB account, which will give you access to submit your application to the board, and you will complete it, etc. I encourage students to wait until you find out if you're funded before you start the IRB process, because if for some reason you don't get funded, hopefully that's not the case, but it does happen occasionally, you don't want to have spent all this time creating an IRB application just to have us withdraw it because you can't do the project. So time's kind of critical, but I do encourage students to wait until they know their plans for sure with funding. We encourage students to, well, everybody to allow at least 4 weeks. It's not one of those projects where you can hole up in ZSR and write a paper that's due the next day. The IRB is a process as well. So you'll submit your application, we'll get it, do an administrative review to make sure everything's included, your consent form, your recruitment materials, etc. Then it goes to an IRB member for their scientific review, and we send concerns back and forth to you. So 4 weeks is what we shoot for. That is entirely contingent upon humans. So if you're on spring break and don't check in for 10 days, it's going to sit there for 10 days. So this is very much a tennis match where we have to play together. We are not competitors on the other side of the net. We are working together to keep the volley going. Once you get to the field, if you decide you need to ask these questions instead of those questions, or if you've changed something, you cannot implement that change until you've amended your study. If that's again through EIRB, and it's a simple process, just takes a couple of days to get that working. So you'll need to make those changes before you implement them. And then for international student sites, there are some regulations that specific countries have. I can help you. I've got a whole guide online that tells me what countries have which regulations. Social behavioral research, thankfully, is not super governed abroad. It's mostly biomedical research, but we can help you figure out what you might need from those countries as well. The other big thing is to consider your culture and your language barriers. If you're wanting to go into Spain to do research, can you communicate with people? Do you speak fluent? Culture, you know, are women allowed to go into this mosque? I've had a lot of students wanting to go do research in mosques. Are women allowed at the same time men are? You've got to be aware of those things because That's all about protecting the participants, respecting them, providing them a safe place to participate. So as you're thinking through your projects, think through ways you're going to familiarize yourself or educate yourself with those cultural trends. For more information, if you email IRB@WFU, it comes to both Lindsay and I. We rarely ever take PTO at the same time, but if you shoot us an email there, we'll both get it and one of us will respond to you. I will also, as I review the applications that come in, I kind of set up Zoom office hours kind of loosely so that we can meet and have conversations about your projects. You can ask specific questions, etc. But it's a very, not intense, but intentional dynamic to get the IRB approved. It's not impossible, but it is a busy spring. You've got midterms and spring break and all the good things. So just keep it on your radar that you have to pay attention to your emails to find out what ERB's telling you need to do next. So I'll be around. I'm going to hang out with the Richter folks across the hall, but I'll be around and you can email us at any point if you have questions or concerns. That's it for me.
One of the reasons Gina's going to go across the hall with the Richter folks is because many of you, if you're staying on campus and doing your fellowship here, will be doing one within the lab of someone who's already doing social science research, and they can help shepherd you through the process. So if you're having questions in your head about this and you're going to stay on campus, I would suggest talking to your mentor first. If you have any questions at any time, you can certainly reach out to the office. Okay. So where are we? Okay. So now what we're going to do is break up into two groups. If you are interested in the Wake Forest Research Fellowship or the Wake Forest Arts and Humanities Fellowship, stay in this room. If you're primarily interested in the Richter Scholarship, then go directly across the hall. And if it looks like you're back in this room, it's because it's an identically shaped room. It's just facing in that direction.